Hello everyone, and welcome to another Beyond Words. This is the video series where I just casually chat about whatever's driving me to drink today. And today it's Spyro. Before I get into that, I am going to do a fully edited video on the final game. But I'm not going to do a history video in the same way I did with Crash, because I'm actually not as familiar with the exact ins and outs of Spyro's history. I played all the games, I know the general shape of what happened, but I don't know any interesting or funny or worrisome facts about that franchise that I could potentially do a decent video on. And I don't want to shortchange you guys. I want to cover the game and give it my full focus when it's actually here. I'm really sorry, but you'll have to deal with this kind of casual discussion of what we've seen so far from the teasers, which is probably for the best, to be honest. But Papa got other fish to fry at the moment, okay? I also want to get some updates out of the way before I get into all of that. Thank you so much for the feedback on the Sly video. That got 13k in around a week, and it's gone crazy since I've heard it's been showing up in people's recommendations. And I was worried about this video because while I worked really hard to get all the research right and made sure that all my facts were straight, I let one, maybe two things slip through the ringer because some of the info I had to fill in the gaps on because it's not all out there in an easily accessible, format. It's not something where you can just go on the Sly Wiki and all the info you could possibly need is on there. A lot of it, for some reason, is kind of scattered to the four winds. I had to do a lot of tracking through old interviews and videos and stuff, and sort of managed to put everything together in a way that, from information that came out afterwards, turns out was pretty accurate. See, I didn't message any of the developers before making the video, which I really should have, and I didn't find some of the things that got sent to me afterwards. Half of that being because this is the first video where I put myself on a deadline. I hadn't put something out for a while. I really wanted to get something big and in-depth out there, and I'd been writing it, but I hadn't necessarily put my foot on the pedal, and I decided with Patreon being up and everything, I really needed to make an effort to get it done. And I didn't want to skimp it at the same time, so I was kind of spending, all days and nights just really making sure it was good. And I'm glad it turned out that way. I was right on the Selma Hayek thing, which I wasn't sure about. Basically, the story behind that is that I'd looked at TV tropes because I was looking for any lead to possible info, and the first thing on there is, oh, the artist had a crush on Selma Hayek, so he based the character of Carmelita on her. And I'm like, okay, I'll look and verify that. A week later, while I'm, thinking of a million other things, I come across the image of Carmelita, her original drawing, and she kind of looks like Selma Hayek, and my brain goes, oh, that's exciting, there's truth to that. And then I never followed it up because I just forgot. So, really sorry that happened, but as it turns out, I messaged Dev Madan, and he gave me an email back, and turns out I was 100% right. That and Jennifer Lopez. I know about the second one, not just because of his email, but because a commenter sent me a link to a GDC talk that he had done, and it was like a rough draft for the video I ended up creating. If I had had that before I made my video, I think it would have been even better. But it was amazing to see that I'd actually gotten a couple of facts that I completely had to guess at totally right, and I was really, really happy about that. I want to take as much time as possible to get the sequel right for you guys. Sly 2, as many of you have pointed out, is a phenomenal leap from the first game. And I know that a friend of mine is kind of going to talk about those two games, and I feel like I may potentially be scooped on a couple of points. They're things that we share very similar opinions of and have had a lot of discussions about. So, on the one hand, I want to get the video out soon to show you guys that, it's all in my brain. But on the other hand, I've got a lot of other stuff on my plate that honestly is very therapeutic right now. The video I'm working on as we speak is something that's getting me really reinvigorated about art again, which has been a while. You'd be amazed. It's been a while since I've really felt happy about something like that. So you'll see. It's probably a video that's going to lose me all my subs, and everyone's going to go, "Where's the Sly video?" But this is something that means an awful lot to me, and it will be very interesting to see how it comes out. I don't even think it's my best written video, but it's one of my best experiments, I think. So we'll see how that comes out in the wash. How do I distract from the fact I'm not doing Sly straight away? Oh, look who's back! Okay, so people are asking me what my take is on Spyro at the moment, and I can already see the discussion around it is quite different to what happened to Crash. I have seen everything regarding this game. I've seen the fans who love the new change and think that it's a really positive step forward for Spyro. This is him coming back. We saved video games. But I've also seen more diehard fans criticize the look than I have with Crash. It's very interesting. With Crash, people were very defensive and hostile about, no, you can't say shit about it. And now I'm seeing some of those same fans going, you know, N-Sync looks kind of garbage next to Spyro. You know, I mean, maybe, guys. I'm just saying there. My personal feeling right now is that there's definitely some truth to some of the existing criticisms people have. Yeah, the lighting is very intense right now. It's harder if the environment bleeds as many purples and reds as Spyro, because the whole point of the flat colours of the original was so the purple of his skin could be visible against the green grass. I totally get the skybox thing as well. They're losing that dreamlike quality that the originals had, and it doesn't really gel so well with the style they've got going on. There's a little bit of overuse of bloom, just very slightly, but it's really not as bad as what other companies have done, but it's still there. It's still kind of there. And there's a screenshot going around that I think does a fantastic job at conceptually correcting the mistakes that I've mentioned. Just calming the image down a bit, pulling back some of the extemporaneous details that actually clutter up the image a bit too much. Again, you can call it nitpicking, but this is stuff people think about, man. There is a possibility of overwhelming the individual by just adding everything on top of an image. You need to dial it back a bit so that it's restful on the eyes and you can just, you know, sit there and absorb and appreciate what you're looking at like a drawing. We need a little boost on that bass, if that's what it's going to sound like. I'm just saying, guys. Here's the thing. I love the new style. I'm not Drake and Joshin with you. I could give you some grievances, and it's obviously on a budget like Crash. It's still a company that's being dealt with by Activision, and they just did Skylanders. It's not top shelf next gen material, but the actual artistic competency of the direction is bounds above what Vivi was doing. This is what I expected to begin with. The real telltale piece of the show is Spyro. If you look at his body, if you really look at it, it's made of very clear, uncluttered shapes. You could do like a line around his main body and it's just like a super solid shape. It reads very quickly. The textures are flatter. It looks more like a drawn cartoon. His eyes are flattened to that cartoon style. It doesn't matter what shadow you put it under, those eyes are going to be pretty visible. I love that he looks like a drawing in every pose. I love that all of the rounded corners on him have these very slight angles that give him this subtle squared off look. It looks like what the next step up from a PS1 style of aesthetic should be. You know, you take that harsh square style and you find the next appealing way to capture that in another graphical form. You're also, from what I can tell, hopefully not going to get all the weird lighting effects like Insane Trilogy, not just because they're using a different engine. They were working on Alchemy, these guys are working on Unreal 4. It's because you can see the models are designed to catch the light in very particular ways. So the artists never lose control of how a model is going to look in any given image. It means that they have a lot more control over what the player is going to come across. And for a game that's as character-driven as Spyro, that's phenomenally good news. I couldn't be more happy with how they tackled that. Look at the water texture, man. You remember that thing where I said about the water texture in Crash just being some preset that they dumped in there, and people were like, yeah, well, you know, that doesn't matter. And then you look at the Spyro game and they've made water that looks like it was hand-drawn. You know, it's actually been textured and stylized to look like part of the rest of the aesthetic. People sat and thought about that. See, it's not hard. People do it, man. I'm not like insane. Well, I am, but let's not cloud the issue with facts, okay? They've made incredibly bold decisions that actually make the game feel like it's going to be its own beast in some ways, and that's cool. Toasty, for example, strong shapes going on with this character. It's the first time I've looked at a remastered version of something and gone, I think I prefer this design to what it looked like originally. I might not agree with all the changes, but I understand the vision they're coming from, and it's based on a lot of solid principles that give us, so far, fantastic designs. You guys have seen this little Nasty Naught preview someone spotted, right? In a painting in the background? From what I can tell, this looks like they're basing a lot of the redesigns on the in-game models they have access to, rather than all of the concept art. There's obviously cases where that's not true, but this version of Nasty, very much based on the model that he had, rather than, you know, Zembilis' design. It's going to be very interesting to see how that works out down the line, where it applies and where it doesn't apply. Spyro's rocking a Zembilis drawing on the cover as well, which is a really nice touch, and it just already looks more energized than the Crash drawing, which looks a bit stiff by comparison. Crash is kind of like, I could give it a bit of a stretch, but I'm not really into it. And whereas the Spyro drawing is like, zip, zapow, catch the pigeon, you understand? I'm actually a million more times excited to see how this game is going to be interpreted compared to Crash, because it's so much bigger in scope. Will they really reimagine the hundreds of unique characters that come up in this game? Even the ones that, you know, they've used the same base model, but they are clearly different races. What about some of the boringly staged cutscenes? You know, are they going to up their game on making those make sense? Are we going to have all the cool little enemy interactions where they're bothering the characters in the environment, or all that stuff where the characters pop out and talk to us about where they're at? You know, playing through the originals again, I'm noticing just how much work has to be done, and I'll be really impressed if that all goes in there and if it gets interpreted well. The Spyro games have always lived and died on the strength of their AI, and I'm excited to see if that translates well. I want to see that all the stuff I've discussed in my setting the scene video turns up in Spyro, because you'd think, well, of course all those things are going to end up in there, but Conker's Bad Fur Day Remake didn't even have the fucking facial animations, so you never know what's going to be left out. Anyway, I'm definitely going to talk about the game, as I said, in a video. Whether it's a big critique like Crash or just a little addendum, it really depends on how much there's going to be to get into. And seeing as it's Spyro, it could be a huge amount of ground to cover, so I'm kind of getting a head start playing through the Spyro games in the meantime as well. I do want to add that I'm still wary of most remakes. I feel bad because I was listening to the Matthew Matosis podcast the other day, and he is 100% right about Shadow of the Colossus. That was missing the misty illusionary effect that gave it its own sort of dreamlike effect, and it's a real why bother situation, given that the PS3 HD upscale did the job fine on its own. I also don't know whether or not Medieval is going to get a HD version that's like completely built from the ground up, or a rehash of Resurrection, or a blending of the two, or whatever it's going to be. I don't know. I would much prefer if these games all went the way of Soulstorm, reimagining the sequels that were lackluster as entirely new games, and I've heard rumours that maybe that's what's going to happen to Crash. They keep using Twinsanity imagery, and you know, I get a weird feeling that that could come up again. I will actually die laughing if they announce that Wrath of Cortex is going to be remade, and they're just going to remake every game that happened until I die, as opposed to making a new one. So, I don't know, I'm very cautious still about all of this situation. I do think that Spyro is a good step up, and I'd like for people to take notes from the sister company. You know, it's just what I expected the first time, and it's weird that I'm only getting it now. So yeah, remakes, I'm up and down. I don't think this really violates my principle, but it is, you know, I gotta give credit where credit's due, and credit is absolutely due to Toys for Bob. So they probably won't see this, but good job, guys, so far. Fix those skyboxes, and then I think we'll be good. One last big thank you to all the people who came to my Discord and those who have supported my Patreon. Getting to know some of you and seeing the discussions that have come out of it has been an absolute pleasure, and I've been feeling really good about this channel, more than I have for quite a long time. I have started monetizing some of the videos, which I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I'm curious to see how that goes. The ongoing fuel of the videos is definitely Patreon right now, so, you know, I just appreciate the support, and the fact that some of you just feel the need to do it. That's really, really nice of you. I was always going to butcher this part, so sorry. If there's a big enough demand for better rewards, please let me know. I want to work that kind of stuff into my schedule so that you guys are getting the best possible deal. And again, really want to make sure the videos are worth what you're putting into them. So thank you very much for that. Anyway, that is about it from me. You guys are excellent, but I have to go and record some videos, finish all the Spyros for like the 60th time, and finish Tin Star. Yeah, fuck that guy, am I right, Tim?